Hello to all Cinemaster lovers. Imagine being born in a village with no way out. If anyone tries to leave, they never return, and no one can rescue them because the village is surrounded by forests, inhabited by the village's own forest monsters, bound by oaths and laws. Unfortunately, curiosity can lead people and those around them into danger, just like in the film The Village, one of the strongest mystery, horror, and thriller films released in 2004. The movie begins in an isolated rural village, surrounded by forests on all sides. The villagers gather for the funeral of one of their own, mourning the loss and offering condolences to the family. It's customary for everyone to come together for meals around a large table in the center of the village. Noah, a mentally challenged man living among the villagers, whose behavior is accepted by the community, and no one speaks against it. In the village, after meals, the women clean the dishes and tidy up, restoring everything to its original state. The girls take pleasure in sweeping the houses, happily fulfilling their roles in life. However, while sweeping, they find a red flower and exclaim, "Oh my God, the forbidden color!" They quickly decide to bury the flower, as the color red is strictly forbidden in the village and cannot appear in any form. At night, guards are posted near the forest surrounding the village to keep watch, ready to warn the villagers if anything unusual appears. The next day, the children of the village gather around something, and someone approaches to see what has caught their attention. As they get closer, they discover a small village animal with its throat slit and its skin completely removed. The village teacher, speaking to the frightened children who are convinced that the creatures from the forest will attack, tries to calm them down and find out who has been spreading such fears. The children, scared and anxious, explain that they saw the skinned animal and are certain that only the forest creatures could have done it. The teacher reassures them, reminding them that these creatures haven't approached the village in many years and that there's no reason to believe they would now. Later, the village council convenes to investigate what happened. As they deliberate, Lucius, played by the great Daniel Day-Lewis, interrupts them. He explains that even though his mother is on the council, she doesn't know why he's there. He reveals that after a child died from illness, the village can no longer afford to remain isolated. He argues that the village's isolation is putting everyone at risk, as they lack medicine to treat the sick. Lucius requests permission to leave the village, travel to the city, and bring back medicines to protect the villagers from death. He also believes that the forest creatures have feelings of fear and compassion, and that they will allow him to pass through safely. He leaves them to consider his request. In the evening, Lucius tells his mother that he's going to spend time with his friend who is too scared to be on watch duty alone. He reassures her, saying, "Don't worry, Mom. If anything happens, I'll just sit with the creatures." Later, as they sit in the watchtower, the night is calm with nothing unusual happening. His friend thanks him for coming along and mentions that the world is full of evil, reminding him that they must always be vigilant and aware of everything around them. During a town meeting, a woman addresses the village, particularly the children, warning them that the culprit behind the attacks on the village animals is likely a wolf or a human monster. She emphasizes the importance of keeping a close watch on the children to protect them. She dismisses the other theory about the forest creatures, explaining that those beings are much larger and would leave more significant traces if they were involved. Meanwhile, the village elder's daughter tells her father that she wants to get married. Surprised, he responds, "What kind of nonsense is this? The boy should come to me and declare that he loves you and wants to marry you, doing whatever it takes to win my approval." She replies that the boy doesn't even know she wants to get married. Her father, teasing, tells her, "All right, but don't tell anyone until you talk to him and know his feelings." Later, she approaches Lucius at his work and confesses her feelings, telling him that she loves him more than the sun and the moon combined and that she wants to marry him. At night, she is crying hysterically at home, and her sister comforts her, telling her that the world is full of love and just because Lucius didn't accept her doesn't mean it's the end of the world. She assures her that she will find love again. Lucius, while at work, has his boss apologizing to him, explaining that he hasn't slept for 3 days and couldn't help him out as much as he wanted to. Meanwhile, some young men are playing a game at the edge of the village. The game is about who can stand the longest with their back to the forest without getting scared. One of them, terrified, hears sounds coming from the forest and eventually runs away, unable to continue. Lucius listens to his boss's sorrows at work and then collects his pay at the end of the day. Later, Noah gets into a fight with some kids in the village, and Ivy, the blind daughter of the village elder, calls out to Noah, threatening to lock him in the punishment room if he doesn't stop. Noah apologizes and promises not to fight again. Ivy suggests they race to a big rock, but without cheating. Noah agrees, but when Ivy distracts him by pointing out something nearby, she takes off running, showing no signs of her blindness as she swiftly outpaces him. Noah catches up, and they arrive at the big rock where Lucius is sitting and eating, lost in thought. Noah snatches a piece of Lucius's food, and Ivy sits down, asking Lucius how he is. She mentions that her sister cried a lot and asks if he's surprised that she knew it was him. She explains that she has a way of sensing who is around her, like waves or rays, even though she can't see colors. She also mentions that she knows he rejected her sister for another reason and reminds him of the time he caught her when she was about to fall as a child. Lucius comments on how she runs like the boys, and she responds, saying there's nothing wrong with that and questions why he's surprised she runs despite being blind. Noah then pulls out a red plant and hands it to Ivy. Lucius warns her that it's the forbidden color. She decides to bury it, and Lucius asks Noah where he got it. Noah reveals that it was in his pocket, not something he just picked, indicating that he frequently enters the forest to collect such plants. Lucius stands before the village council, holding the red plant he found in Noah's hand. He explains that Noah, who is mentally challenged, has been entering the forest frequently to collect the plant, yet nothing has happened to him. This, Lucius argues, proves that the creatures recognize and spare those with pure hearts who do not intend harm. He renews his request to be allowed to cross the forest and reach the city to obtain medicine for the village. That night, his mother tries to dissuade him from his plan. She reminds him of the dangerous nature of the journey and recounts how his father once attempted to go to the city but was found dead, naked, and floating in the river. Lucius reassures her, expressing his determination to go, stating that the city isn't the only unknown. Everything around them is mysterious. He points out that every member of the council has a secret, perhaps a devastating one, and suggests that even she has a secret she's hiding. When he asks her to open a box, she refuses, saying it's something personal and reiterating her concern for his safety. Lucius, however, assures her that he'll be fine. The next day, the villagers make sure that all the oil lamps surrounding the village are in working order. The lamps serve as a barrier, clearly marking the village's boundaries and ensuring no one accidentally enters the forest. Everyone wears neutral colors to avoid provoking the creatures by wearing red. Meanwhile, Lucius sneaks into the forest, moving cautiously among the villagers. He carefully picks some of the red plants, just like Noah did, but soon hears strange noises around him and quickly leaves the forest in a rush. At night, on the edge of the village, Lucius spots Ivy and pulls her aside, asking where she's going since she's close to the forest. Ivy tells him she was playing hide-and-seek with Noah. Lucius takes her home and tells her that maybe when he goes to the city, he can find medicine that could help Noah get better. But Ivy brushes it off, telling him to stop talking about such depressing things. She also mentions that her sister is getting married to a good man and that she has given her blessing for the marriage. Ivy then goes inside, leaving Lucius behind. Meanwhile, the guard on the watchtower hears a knock on the tower door. Thinking it might be Lucius, he opens it, only to see a creature dressed in red moving around. Terrified, he slams the door shut and rings the large bell on the tower. The entire village panics and rushes to their hidden shelters. Those who have a shelter in their homes hurry inside. Ivy, however, goes out to search for Noah. When she finds him, she insists that Lucius didn't make it inside and is still outside, trying to make sure everyone is safe. Indeed, Lucius is outside, hiding from the creatures that begin to approach the houses and knock on doors. Ivy's family begs her to come inside, and just in time, Lucius reaches her, pulling her away before anything gets too close. He takes her back to the house, and they lock themselves in and head down to the shelter. The next morning, all the village houses are closed and marked with red signs from the creatures that visited last night. At a village meeting, it's announced that the creatures came and warned them in their own way, which is unusual for them. They urge anyone with information to come forward. A letter is received, unsigned at the beginning but later identified as written by Lucius, confessing that he entered the forest, picked a plant, and is sorry for bringing shame to his family and himself, and he is willing to face any punishment. The village elder approaches Lucius, reassuring him not to worry or cry, saying everyone makes mistakes and it will be all right. Later, the village is celebrating Ivy's sister's wedding with their traditional ritual of throwing a whole sheep onto a large stone in front of the forest as a sacrifice to the forest creatures. Ivy is with her relative, who reminds her of her sister in her wedding dress, and Ivy learns that her older sister was killed by a group of men in the city. During the celebration, Ivy's sister pulls her into the dance, celebrating her happiness and her sister's attention. Suddenly, Ivy hears screams from afar as her heightened sense of hearing alerts her first. Panic ensues, and Ivy, disoriented, is rescued by Lucius, who helps her move to safety. Children come running, screaming that the creatures are everywhere in the village. The village elder dismisses it as strange talk and tells the children to stay calm and entertain themselves with Ivy's stories. Later, the men investigate the village and find that an animal has been killed in the same manner as before, with its skin flayed and its body either hanging on doors or strewn about haphazardly. Lucius's mother tells the village elder that the markings are higher up this time and insists that no wolves will reach this place. She warns that their excuses for not protecting the children are running out. Lucius is sitting on the doorstep of Ivy's house when she comes out and asks him if he really sees her like the other boys. She says she wishes she were a boy so she could play their games and face the forest like they do. She also mentions that he holds the record for their game. Ivy then asks if he will dance with his bride on their wedding day, and she says dancing is a good idea. He remarks that he always starts conversations when she wants to talk and asks why she makes him talk when he's not ready to. He confesses that she occupies his thoughts constantly, and the only time he feels fear is when she's in danger. He admits he loves her and kisses her. The next day, a woman from the village asks if the rumors about their engagement are true. It's clear that everyone in the village knows about it, even though it was only discussed at night. Ivy talks to her sister, telling her that she doesn't want her to feel unhappy about the engagement, and to speak up if she has any concerns, as no happiness should be built on someone else's sorrow. Her sister assures her that she is okay with the marriage. Later, Noah is in Lucius's office. Lucius acknowledges Noah's feelings for Ivy, but before he can continue, Noah stabs him with a knife, leaving him severely wounded. Meanwhile, Ivy's father is getting ready to go to the council and finds Noah outside with blood on his hands, crying. The village is thrown into chaos as they try to figure out whose blood it is. Ivy hears the news and panics, running to Lucius's house in fear, thinking that something might have happened to him. She searches for him desperately until she bumps into his body. Her father arrives, hugs her, and quickly pulls her away. The doctor emerges, stating that Lucius's condition is critical, but he is still alive, while the doctor continues to attend to him inside. Ivy goes to the room where Noah is being held and starts hitting and cursing him until someone intervenes and pulls her away. She then speaks to her father, expressing her love for Lucius and her desire to go to the city to get medicine for him. She asks her father to support her decision. Lucius's mother talks to Ivy's father, telling him that what Ivy wants is unacceptable and that no one should betray their oath. The father asks the doctor if there is any hope for Lucius's recovery. The doctor says there is a chance, but the wound could get infected, and its outcome is uncertain. Later, the father takes Ivy to the old storage facility and tells her that he wants to talk about something. He shares that his own father was a brilliant businessman who could turn $1 into 5, but despite his skill, he was killed by someone who wanted to steal from him. The father explains that, unlike his father, he is aware of the dangers and sees the world as bleak. However, he admires Ivy's ability to see hope even in darkness. He asks her to stay strong and not to cry, for his sake, as they head towards the storage facility. Ivy, dressed in neutral colors, is preparing to leave and says goodbye to Lucius, who is in a coma. She promises him that she will get the medicine and return in time for their wedding dance. The council tells her father that it's forbidden to send her out and that it goes against their oath. Her father insists that his daughter's happiness is paramount. He can't bear to see her unhappy or alone, and he is willing to face any consequences for her sake. The council agrees to send 2 people with Ivy into the forest to get the medicine. One of them, terrified, refuses to enter the forest and leaves them. Ivy reassures the remaining person, telling him that her father gave her magical stones for protection. They set up camp when it starts raining. The remaining person expresses concern about the creatures in the forest, but Ivy comforts him, although she feels scared and alone. He eventually decides to leave her, apologizing for his fear. In a flashback, Ivy remembers her father taking her to the storage facility and showing her the fake monsters they created to keep people from leaving the village. He explains that they isolated themselves there decades ago to escape the harshness of the outside world, and that the council is aware of all this. Her father stresses that the myths about the creatures are part of their control over the village. He instructs her to follow the secret path, get the medicine, and return quickly because the creatures were based on myths he once taught his students. Lucius's mother is visited by him, who expresses his love but states that he doesn't want anything to happen between them to ensure he doesn't leave his daughter alone. He says he sent his most precious possession to the city for her, and then leaves. The council continues to debate his actions, but he stands firm on his position. Meanwhile, Ivy is alone in the forest at night, drenched and scared. She hears sounds around her and tries to comfort herself by telling herself it's not real. When morning comes, she decides to continue her path, but almost falls into a large mud pit. She manages to climb out and, although shaken, hears footsteps again. She runs frantically, fearing the presence of a person intending harm or a creature, as both scenarios are dangerous. Eventually, she finds herself surrounded by red plants, which, according to the legend, attract the creatures. One of these creatures appears and chases her. Despite her blindness, Ivy remains composed, manages to outwit the creature, and causes it to fall into the pit she had previously escaped from. Back in the village, Noah's family discovers that one of the suits they had hidden is missing, and it turns out that Noah had stolen the suit and was wearing it in the forest, although Ivy didn't recognize him. Noah, after falling into the pit and hitting the rocks below, dies from his injuries. Meanwhile, Ivy reaches the hidden path and begins to run along it, as it is marked. Lucius, who is worsening, remains in a critical state. Ivy successfully reaches the end of the marked path and finds herself in front of a wall. Given her athleticism, she climbs over it with ease. Back at Lucius's home, the elder visits Lucius's mother as she prepares new compresses for him. They open the box she had kept hidden and find newspapers detailing events from their past. It is revealed that the story about the woman's sister being killed and dumped in the trash was true. Additionally, there was a violent incident involving Ivy's father and a friend over money, resulting in the friend's death. The community was rife with corruption, greed, and malice. They also discover a photograph of the town's council members in the city, living ordinary lives, which contrasts sharply with the situation in their village. Ivy, who has just climbed over the wall and found herself on the road outside, is approached by a police officer. She informs him that she comes from the forest and needs to get to a pharmacist to get the medicines listed on her paper. The officer, noting her unusual request, asks her if someone has been injured, to which she confirms. He then realizes that she's serious and not playing a prank. Ivy introduces herself as Ivy Elizabeth Walker, and it's noticed that her name matches the car's registration. The officer decides to help her. He informs her that they have a supply of medicines at their station for animal bites and other emergencies. He takes her to the station where he makes sure everything is in order, and then provides her with the necessary medication. He remains unaware of her personal details and situation, but offers his assistance. Ivy returns to the village with the medicines. Upon her return, the villagers learn that she has killed one of the creatures. Noah's family is heartbroken upon hearing the news. The elder assures them that Noah's actions have made their story real. He promises to find Noah's body, give him a proper burial, and attribute his death to the creatures, ensuring that the village maintains its narrative. Finally, Ivy administers the medicine to Lucius, hoping for his recovery.